So welcome back, you guys. I guess the first question we can start off with is how has COVID-19 impacted Flave, especially because it's had such a big impact on the food industry?
It's dramatically impacted us. I'd probably say not only COVID, but also the recent Black Lives Matters movement. But COVID was something that so our verification process to speak to the product, right? You have to take a photo of your food, and the whole concept of Flave was getting people to dine in as opposed to ordering delivery through these third-party delivery services. And we just saw like a meteoric rise of these third-party delivery services. So, largely people aren't too pleased, especially the restaurants, because of the high transactional costs that's accompanied with them, like the 30% from like Uber Eats and Grubhub. But it's kind of like you'd rather take that to stay alive than, go with what we could during the pandemic. So for us, it definitely postponed everything with our product because we had to make some pivots. We had considered just having like a COVID map. We had to consider our verification process, really just scraping the restaurants that were open, maintaining the relationships. So like just not being tone deaf. Like we're a completely new product that nobody knows about. The restaurants that we have relationships with, they like us a ton, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we didn't want to call you guys and check on Flave when they're concerned about paying their dishwasher or
Right.
keeping the lights on the building. So it was really just being considerate as, what's truly going on in the industry.
And how do you feel like, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement having developed so strongly in the matter of a week, how has that impacted Flave, or what is Flave doing in order to kind of use the voice that you guys have for this movement and for the pandemic going on?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is just in the prior, protests and everything, whether companies may be silent or whatever, if it doesn't directly impact your market, but now it's more or less people have to take a stance. And, the younger generations are looking for companies to take a stance. We're so young as a startup, in like our age range, that I think everybody already leans like on the progressive lens. So we don't have to be as cognizant as to like what our voice is. It's kind of just already assumed. But we were already considering filtering for Black-owned businesses, sustainably sourced businesses, women-owned businesses, just having like distinct filters anyways that folks within those niches just like. But that definitely illuminated that people really want to know where these businesses are. And for us, it was just, leveraging our social media to, as we've seen with a lot of, independent people as well as businesses, just, I think there's just like that trending list that's like the DMV Black-owned restaurants, right? So we would do that. We're kind of trying to interview some of the businesses and, just share their story. And just constantly just driving that awareness.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to kind of walk me through the experience of, everything is normal and you're working on this app and all of a sudden kind of COVID hits and you're like, okay, how do we pivot, and hearing the news about the shutdown and having to adapt.
That was crazy. So that was literally nuts. So kind of like myself and our co-founders, we meet, like we probably talk every day. We talk to Michael every day, probably within our Slack channel, but we work remotely. So, but when we have our Zoom calls just like this, we're like, what are we gonna do? And then I distinctly remember, I could talk to you about like our process, the decision-making process, but probably like the craziest things were just, we're kind of like the restaurant owners. I remember like once you could start getting takeout, I was like waiting outside of a restaurant. And it was the day when Hogan was supposed to announce like the step to stage one. And people were just sitting there like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And like our Slack channel's just going off like, it's coming, like Hogan's supposed to announce at 5. So just that anxiety, we definitely had anxiety for each step. And it's something that we can't control at all. Like we can control our product, we can control who we reach out to, but this is like a natural disaster coming. Like you have no idea what's gonna happen. So we were just kind of working with the cards we were dealt, but we've always taken the approach that if, our main focus was supporting local businesses. And I think that value's always been there, but now it's there more than ever. And so it's more or less like we hope that the numbers continue to drop, and it's, but for our business, as long, of course, family wise, we really want people to be healthy. And we're definitely aware of COVID, but for our business, just in terms of our value proposition, it's almost a net positive, as weird as that is. So I say that with a grain of salt because I don't want to dilute how serious the pandemic is.
Do you feel like this has changed your guys' business model, or how you view how flexible you guys should be in the future in case something similar like this happens again?
I'll probably say not too much. I think for us, it's just we've recognized we have to be more agile. Some of the things we haven't been able to get out, which is a little tough. But we're all working full time, and Michael's on. He's basically built out our whole Android app, and he's with us for the summer, which is amazing. And things like that. But really, what we're seeing is just the increased value in data. Because now the restaurants, we don't know with the 50% capacity, their inventory is constantly going to be changing. So even though the doors may reopen, their operations won't be back to normal. And so they still might be losing money just because of the constant changes on the back end of the operations that aren't normal. So they're going to be testing just like we are. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're testing, you're in a sense, you're moving the needle forward, but you're losing in some regards because you have to use resources to test, right? And so that's kind of a gap that hopefully we can fill, is supply them with valuable information on how to optimize the businesses moving forward.
Now, Michael, were you a part of the Flave team prior, or did you join during this global pandemic?
So I actually joined last fall as like a part-time intern during school. And I, because of school ending and me getting more time, I've been really able to work more like full-time now. And I especially plan on working full-time over the summer. But yeah, it has been really nice just being able to spend more time on it. And especially now, I think it's more important than ever to be really responsive in terms of just our app features and everything we want to offer. So yeah, I think that's been really nice, just being able to commit more to it and just give it more importance.
And can you explain a little bit more of what your role is with Flave?
Sure. So I'm on the Android development team. I'm kind of leading the team for now, and I'm mostly just in charge of building out the Android app.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last time we spoke, Derek, we talked about beta testing. So I was curious to know where that stands, because when we had our first interview, it was when things were quote unquote normal. So you guys were just approaching, I think it was a week away from beta testing. How has that been going? Have you guys had to put that on pause?
Yeah, we've definitely had to put that on pause. So to kind of speak to how our development works, we have our back, we've kind of built everything to scale easily, as opposed to having, because we're in a double-sided marketplace, our MVP is a little tougher than some. I think we definitely could have maybe got out some lists and things to get people on, but it's neither here nor there. So we have our Android team, our iOS team, and then our back-end team, because there's so many moving features or moving pieces. And we're pretty close to probably beta testing for iOS back when we previously spoke, but then the pandemic hit. And so we were really, considering how are we going to verify things, because with the whole taking a photo of your food, it's just it just, and then we wanted to test it. So to give an example, of course, if you were walking down the street and let's say you went to Ekabin, right? And you got the bangin', the fried chicken bun, but you got in a takeout bag. Per geolocation, there's no way to verify that you went to that restaurant And then like maybe if you went home and took a photo of your takeout bag, we could give you the Flave cash. But it's just like, like will people really do that? Like once I get home, I don't know. I'm kind of popping with the TV, watching Netflix. So, but then like we couldn't really test it either because so things were just like boom, 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 boom. Like what are we gonna do? And we were being pretty agile, but now we're kind of back to normality, I would say. Although literally today I've been reading the news, and since things have opened up, I think they've seen a big rise with hospitalizations, unfortunately. So I don't know. I don't think my prediction is I don't think we'll go back to the true stay-at-home laws that we were at, but who knows? But since we've done it once, it's kind of like fool me once, shame on you type of thing. Like we think we're ready for the next one. And I think that's like the sentiment for a lot of businesses. So right now we're really shooting for probably beta testers in I would say late June or the July 1. We're kind of saying July 1 for late fiscal year. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's really kind of made your projected dates for things like your launch a lot more uncertain in a time when like you just don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely impacted our product. And so going back to having a double-sided marketplace, a lot of it is just like verifying the deals that restaurants are going to provide us. And there's just a certain window of time where I just didn't want to be that guy to walk into a restaurant and say, hey, like, are you still honoring, this $8 deal that's going to sit on a redemption catalog? And they're, it's like, and they're checking the temperature of their wait staff, and I'm like, it just wouldn't be appropriate. So I think our product is at a really good place, but I think now kind of everything's cooled off relatively in terms of like the local business setting where they're kind of used to third-party interactions.
Do you think you had like established a good number, like a solid number of relationships before this all happened?
Yeah. I think we definitely did a good job with that. And it's super cool to see like even the restaurants who we have a strong relationship with, they'll tag us on our social media and they're like, we miss you guys. Because in terms of like maintaining our customer relationship management, we always just want to pay it forward. Like we just don't want to, have them sitting on our app. Like you guys know I take class up in Harbor East. So I'll go to like a happy hour, pop in, get like some shrimp and something else at like one of our restaurants and shoot over a class right before. And it's just, they recognize me as like one of the Flave guys, but also like I'm a local. So that's, yeah.
So past COVID-19, past pandemic, let's look towards the hopeful near future when things start to become safer for us to go back out. What is the future looking like for Flave in that environment?
Future's still up and up, right? I think I definitely think the biggest thing is people are truly looking to support these local businesses. So the product's coming out very soon. We're gonna roll it out slowly, and Mike probably touch on this as well. But like, so one of our main features is the socialization aspect, where you can kind of see your recommendations from your friends, see where they've eaten, and kind of their catalog. That'll come out a little slower, but we haven't, just because we've been dialed back in terms of our release, I don't think that expedites like our scale. We really want to scale wisely. So it's not like we're gonna launch in Baltimore, DC, and Philly just because we were planning on doing that by December. We're still gonna really try to get our name strong in Baltimore and go from there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, especially on social media, have been saying, support local businesses during this time. It's really difficult for them, and that's kind of what you guys are aiming to do anyway. So do you feel like in the long run that will kind of help, push Flave to make it more popular and useful for people to say, oh, use this app to like help support local businesses, you know?
Yeah, 100%, because it's a fun way, right? Like at the end of the day, like back in maybe when I was in undergrad, like Foursquare was popping, and but it didn't really have the support, but people just love the gamification aspect of it. So now we have like those same principles of gamification, but with the messaging. I think we're in a sweet spot. And so like we've seen like just like the support, just really just like support local business, whether it's like an artist. I know people are playing like a ton of video games. So Twitch kind of has the same messaging. There's a Patreon that does it for local artists. So like a lot of these companies that are probably in like horizontal verticals, I would say, not in the restaurant space, but have similar messaging, are really seeing a lot of growth, because that's just the way the culture is going. There's just so much social buying and so much social support that I think, you know, we kind of have our own niche, and it's a fun way. So we'll see, but we're optimistic.
Awesome. And going forward, how can our listeners utilize Flave? Where are you guys at? Where can they learn more?
Yeah. So our Instagram, Flave app, definitely follow us. We're doing a lot of fun things. So we have this campaign called Restaurants Unmasked. So if you'll see it, it's like with the medical mask, and it's like a chef hat, but we want to give people a sneak peek to behind the restaurants because they're all kind of masked up, right? So we've done a couple interviews, and you can check those out. We've recently just featured some popular influencers just to stay people like really plugged in into the local community. We're definitely getting more beta testers at our website. It's flave.app, so you can check that out. And then we'll send you guys a link. Internally, our team will probably have a link next week, so you guys will probably have something to play with in a couple of weeks. Outside of that, we're growing our Twitter page and LinkedIn. So really, you guys know a ton about social media, so you can check us out on all of those.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming this morning early for this interview. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Carrie and Erica.
Thank you
so much, guys.
You.